Hello, I'm Carol Talbot, the creator and founder of the Possibility Hub, taking you beyond the boundaries of who you believe yourself to be and opening to new possibilities. This podcast is an advocate for awakening, encouragement, and creating opportunities for an expansion of awareness and consciousness to allow you to step into a fuller focus of who you really are. In this episode, I'm in conversation with an extraordinary healer I met about 6 years ago when I was visiting the UK. And based on a recommendation from a friend, both my mother and I enjoyed a very powerful hypnosis experience within a pyramid structure with a huge etheric weaver crystal hanging down from the capstone. So let me introduce you to my guest, Guy Taylor, a trained clinical hypnotherapist and spiritual healer who facilitated this experience and has a very unique way of combining different tools in his practice. Hello, Guy. I'm so glad you're here because both my mother and myself have enjoyed incredible healing sessions with you. Now, you're a clinical hypnotherapist, yet you incorporate the use of a very large pyramid and the etheric weaver crystals. Not only that, but you've developed your own way of doing things called Pyranosis, I believe. So tell us what that is.
Yeah, Pyranosis actually was a thought that was given to me during lockdown. The thought was that I was told that I need to combine the clinical hypnotherapy with the pyramid healing. And I thought, okay, so how am I going to go about doing this? And then gradually, as I started to make the odd notes, it became a lot clearer about how to combine the two. The principle was that I knew that I wanted firstly to increase my level of clinical hypnotherapy. So I retook a diploma course. That was that was really important for me. I had done it many years before, but I felt I needed to do an update to be able to do this properly. So I took a course, and that was in about May of 2020. It lasted about 3 months. I did most of it online. But in that time, I learned other parts about hypnotherapy, which I really didn't know before. And it was from that having done that, having completed that in the August that year, that I then started to put together how I needed to deliver it in a way that you're bringing a person into as if they feel that they're in a pyramid having healing. Now, this might sound a little strange, but I can tell you that prior to actually properly launching that, I did try it out with some friends of mine who have had pyramid healing before, and actually who are other healers, to try out this process. And to be fair, one of them was a little skeptical to start with, but after I delivered the first session with them, they were just completely blown away with it and just said, you know what, Guy, if I hadn't known any different, I would have thought I was in the pyramid. It was that powerful. I would have thought it was exactly the same thing, which is very gratifying. So I kind of followed along that route, really. But I needed to have something that I was doing a lot of it online at the time. So I did actually feel that I needed a prop. Now, this prop came in the form of how I can only term it as a pyramid rainbow grid. And it's something that I came across quite by accident on the internet. Strangely enough, I was looking for a rainbow pyramid from a poster for my granddaughter. And all of a sudden, this particular picture came up, and I looked at it and I thought, well, that's different. It's nothing like I've ever seen before. And strangely enough, I've never found it again. But I actually got one of the image of this printed, sent to me. And from there, I actually went into the process of getting this grid made where it was visual to see with me when I was actually working on somebody like how we're talking now. But in doing that, And in the learning the new way of delivering clinical hypnotherapy using the grid, it actually made the person feel as if they were in the pyramid having healing.
So what is it about a pyramid and that particular shape that creates or accentuates the energies? I know from a light language perspective, when I've studied, geometry or geomancies, they always say with pyramids, it's about preservation, it's enhancement of energies, and that, if you want to keep your fruit fresh, then put a pyramid shape over your fruit. So, is that what it's doing? It's preserving our bodies as well, or is it enhancing what you're suggesting in the hypnotherapy session?
It actually, Carol, it's doing both. Yeah, you're absolutely right about the preservation. I mean, you see, the pyramids are purported to be probably the most powerful healing structure on the planet, and they've been around for thousands and thousands of years. Now, in my limited scientific understanding, in a pyramid, if you take from the base to the apex, about a third of the way up is where the most powerful energy field in the pyramid is. And it's a constant, it doesn't change. So if, say, for example, you put a foreign body in there, but it being a piece of a fruit, or whether it's an individual or whatever, that person is the foreign body. And for it to stay in there, it's got to be balanced within that, so it comes into symmetry with the energy that's in there. Now, the idea that when you've got somebody, the idea with the Pyranosis is through hypnotherapy is to simulate that feeling of being in the pyramid, right? Now, when you have the grid to start with, if I'm starting off with somebody and they sit and the grid is normally next to me, and I'm saying to them, right, this is what I want you to do. I want you to focus. As you listen to my words, I want you to focus on that grid. And sometimes I'll move out the picture because they can still see me, so they can just see that.
This is when you're doing it online.
Yes, yeah, I can actually do it that way. I've done it with people from my home to people out in the States. I've done it in various places around the world.
Whereas when people come live, they're actually sitting in a huge, 7 or 9 foot pyramid, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, yeah. But the fact with that is that I've even done this with a collective group of people in a room. And when they come, they might all have personal issues of some description that they want to address, but they may not want to talk about it. So if you get every individual to focus individually in their own mind on that grid, that is their personal grid, nobody else's, although there'll be loads of people in the room, and they can address what they want through hypnosis when effectively the grid comes towards them, the pyramid comes towards them and embraces them, if you like. It surrounds them, and it's in this particular energy field. And by doing that, it actually makes that person feel like they can either be in a portal into something so much more wonderful, but it allows them to be able to address whatever it is they want to address personally, privately. You don't even have to discuss with them what it is. They know what it is, and they can deal with it in that way. And that is what I found in the first instance. I mean, I'm exploring with it all the time with Pyranosis. It's amazing. But it's how it works, and it's the marvels of how it works. And it's an experiment the whole time, to be honest with you. It's just a wonderful experience.
That's how we learn, grow, and evolve.
Yeah.
I was just having that conversation earlier today, and I love it when I hear people say they're learning, like you went back and did another clinical hypnotherapy course, not because you weren't certified. And when you sometimes hear something again or do it with a different person or in a different way, it brings in different elements. So there's always more to learn. Now, with the pyramids, and particularly when it's live, because as I said, you've got a huge 7 foot one, and I know that you've just told me that now you also have a 9 foot one, even bigger. Is it a copper pyramid? Because usually these pyramids are copper, and I'm wondering why they're always copper. And do you make your own, or do you have it specifically made to your specifications?
No, they are copper, yes, and they usually have a white coating on the outside. You don't have to have them with a white coating on the outside of them. You can get pyramids, if you go on the internet, you can get them in their copper form. I think it's a little bit about presentation, the fact that they're white to some degree in certain situations, but let's not take away from the fact that it's what the pyramid is. It's the structure. That is the magic about it, really. How you want to present it, to use it, is down to individual choice. And no, I don't make them myself, although I am looking into that at the moment. I have two. The one that you mentioned, the Ascension Pyramid, which is now the 9-foot square. And I also have a Metatron star one, which is a 6-pointed one, which is not quite as big. It's about 8 foot across from point to. But with that one, they do the same job in as much as what they're designed to do. One is just a different shape that you can have somebody half reclined sat in it, as in the Metatron star one. But then obviously the 9-foot one, you can have somebody beautifully laid out flat within it, so they I get them, well, I've the two of them. The last one I got, my most recent one I got back in August 2014. The first one, the Ascension Pyramid, I got in 2010, and I went down to the UK version of headquarters of Shambhala down in Glastonbury, and I went down there. And the reason that I got the pyramid wasn't my intention originally. I went down there to talk about the crystals and that, which I know you want to mention later. But I had my first experience of going in the Ascension Pyramid in meditation mode for about half an hour. And I have to tell you, it was the most moving experience I think I've ever had. It was phenomenal. And it I went back down there about a month or so later to actually purchase my first pyramid, because having come back from that experience that day, it was just so moving. It reached amazing parts for me that I thought, well, if this can do this for me, what can I do if I actually had one, and started to use it for individuals as part of my work.
And isn't that wonderful when you've had an amazing experience yourself and you want to share that experience with others? And this is where, we learn one thing and then blend things together to create our own unique healing modality.
Yeah. I would say, just fleeting back to the Pyranosis thing, when I completed it all and I was happy with the way that it works, I actually did get it officially registered as a therapy. Now through I think the terminology is intellectual property office or something like that. Anyway, I got it registered because I felt that it needed to be registered, to be honest with you. And I did that in March of this year.
I saw that it was trademarked as well, that it's, and I think it gives it a certain credibility and kudos, that it really is a certain intervention that can be taught to other people and brings in a number of elements, which brings me round to these beautiful etheric weaver crystals. And I'm showing one here on the screen because this is a beautiful one that my mother bought me just recently, because she had a session with you just a few weeks ago before she went to Spain, and I met her there. And this was her gift to me, and it's absolutely beautiful, highly magnetic as well. And in the pyramid, if I remember, when I have my session with you, there is a huge etheric weaver crystal, huge, coming from the center, from the capstone. Now, you've talked about, you had a session within the pyramid in Glastonbury yourself and were blown away. So how did this next layer with the etheric weaver crystals come in? Because as I said, I'm just showing this as more of a sort of, it's quite a large weaver crystal for a pendulum, yet the ones in the pyramid are huge.
Well, in actual fact, it's a reversal of roles, because it's the weavers that actually led me to the pyramids, believe it or not. I very quickly, I trained as a spiritual healer back in 2007, and I used to go to events where I was doing that kind of work. And one day I was after a very busy Saturday, I was having a coffee break from a very busy morning, and a very dear friend, medium friend of mine, said, "You need to go and see that gentleman over there." So I said, "Why?" She said, just go and see him. I went,
it's good to do as we're told sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah. And this guy had a table there. I don't know how long it was, Carol, must have been 12 foot long, and the most amazing crystals I've ever seen. I mean, I know a little bit more about crystals now than I did then, but right at the very front were these etheric crystal weavers, not like the one that you've got. These were sort of large 3.5-inch copper ones, right? Now, I was really drawn to them. Now, my favorite color is blue, always has been. Out to the front there, and he had 4 or 5 out there. And what did I pick? Emerald green. And I said, oh, that's nice. Picked it up. And as I literally, as true as I'm sitting here talking to you now, as I picked it up by the blue pearl drop, it went almost immediately into helicopter mode. Yeah, that's it. You're holding that bit there. And literally, it was like it was about to take off. And the gentleman who was there, he sort of took a step back and said, oh, I've never seen it do that before. And I said, well, what's it doing? And he said, well, I think it's connecting with you. And I went, right, okay. Anyway, cutting a long story short, where that's concerned, we had a conversation and I decided I was going to buy it. I was really drawn to think, no, I really need to get this. I went home that day and I showed my wife at the time this weaver that I bought. And she asked me, what does it do? And I said, well, it's a healing tool. I'm kind of working with it and the information that I've been given. Following morning, bearing in mind, this was Christmas time, came down in the morning to feed the dogs and take them out for their morning walk. And one of our dogs, Barney, who was like a bear, he was a cross between a Rottweiler and a Labrador. He was sitting in the lounge in the conservatory, and overnight, one of his paws had swollen up to the size of my fist. And he couldn't load bear on his front paw at all. Now, bearing in mind, he was about a 35-kilo dog, so he wasn't little. He couldn't actually. So my wife took the other dogs out for their morning walk, and I decided, well, I'm going to start to use this weaver and see what happens. And I was guided by them, my friends upstairs, as to how to work with Barney. And it was through working with him that's how I formulated a what I call a round the world circuit of working with people when I'm doing healing with them. Just to say that when I'd finished getting to the crucial point of Barney's front paw, and I'd looked, and there was no cuts in it, no thorns stuck in it or anything, it went absolutely mental, Carol. It was literally like I did the day before with me, and it was going round in circles one way, then it would go back the other way, then it would sweep his leg one way, then the other way. And it did this for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden, it just stopped. And that was it. And I thought, well, is that it? Went out for a few hours to do some Christmas shopping, came back, and there's Barney sitting in the middle of the floor, pleased as punch, wiping the floor with his tail, the paw, swollen paw, completely gone. It was absolutely, and it never came back. And in the afternoon, he was running around the fields with his brothers, and it just never came back. And I thought, wow, there's something really special with these. That started me off on the journey. Literally, that started me off on the journey. Finally, I've got to know more about this. I can't just read a pamphlet. I've got to know more about this. So I went down to Glastonbury and met one of the Annies, what they call Annies down there, and nuns, and had a lovely conversation day with her. She was the one that gave me the experience of going into the pyramid. And I came away, my head buzzing, full of lovely stuff. As I love the word stuff because it covers a whole lots of things, But and from that, I progressed to getting more weavers because I thought, well, I need just more than the one. I'd looked at the charts of what they all meant and how they worked in the spiritual sense and how they worked in the practical sense. And I thought, this is a path I need to go down. And really, that's how I got into that part of it, working with starting to work with the weavers and then finding out more about not only the copper ones, but the silver ones, which they did make at the time. Unfortunately, they don't do now, and the gold ones. And then going from there, progressing to working in a pyramid and obtaining one.
So with the pyramid, the etheric weaver that I have now, I can literally, if I'm not mistaken, I can enhance. Like I have a glass of water here, so I can enhance the glass of water and you can see that I'm not doing anything. It's moving from where I'm looking at it in a clockwise direction. That you can utilize these for yourself, and I know there's also smaller ones that you can use as a pendulum, as a pendant.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
the one you have in that I remember, as I said, was huge, right in the capstone.
Yeah.
And I seem to remember, and this is a long time ago, Guy. It must be, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer.
Yeah.
When I came down to see you.
Yeah.
With my mother, we had such a wonderful time, and my
Yeah.
mother, as I said, was blown away. And this was through a mutual friend of ours who'd said, "Hey, you need to, meet with Guy." And my mother needed some healing at the time, so down we drove through the Surrey Hills to where you were living at that time. And I also remember, and you must see it all the time because. I'm also work with hypnosis and different forms of hypnosis. And, people go into sometimes a light, medium, or deep trance the first time. I do recall going into one of the deepest trances that I've been in, but the difference also was this beautiful etheric weaver crystal is right above your head. So you, as the hypnotherapist, must see it move. And maybe going around in different circles. And does that give you the indication that when it's finished moving, as it did with your dog Barney, that the healing is complete when it becomes to a standstill? Is that your sign, is that how it works?
Well, actually, partly that. The one that you're referring to is called a Dharma weaver. It is in the shape, I call it Heaven's Key, because it looks like a big gold key and it hangs from the center, just as you said. Yes, sometimes you can feel a presence within your work. It's not only about the energy in the pyramid, it's everything that's encompassed within it. And you do become part of it and you can see them move. Sometimes it's very, very subtle in the way they move, but they don't have to be, I won't say, violent's not the right word. They don't have to be really, really heavily moving to know that there's movement going on there with them. And yeah, you're absolutely right. When you have this feeling, when it's coming to the end. And as it starts to stop, what I will actually mentally say to them, is this now finished? Now, I don't know how your weaver works for yes and no, but mine goes clockwise and anti-clockwise. And then I say,
forward for yes and side to side for no. And then we have yes maybe and no maybe.
And if it doesn't move at all, then you're not supposed to ask the question at all. So, but no. So yeah, with that, and then I always say to them, if this is now finished, then will you do your elliptical sweep? And it always does an elliptical sweep with me when I say thank you for, yeah. And the thing about it is, and you won't know that you did it, and your mum won't know that I'm good, but everybody does it in the pyramid at some point during that process. All of a sudden, when they're at a particular point because they all go, and it's at that point then that they're in complete receptivity of the energy that's coming in. Their body has been so relaxed, so cleared. And you also have to bear in mind, Carol, that the pyramid scans you like a blueprint. It knows you better than you know you. And fundamentally, when you're working with the weaver in conjunction with it and it stops at a certain point and it starts to move, it's because it's been directed. I'm just the person that's holding it, although a bit more than that, but I use that loosely. Because it's at that point then it detects something that has to be taken care of. And with what also happens from an emotional level is that we all do it. At some point in our life, we may have had an experience that we want to forget, and we push it down and push it down. Then things push it down far enough, it can't bother us. But unfortunately, when you're in the pyramid, a pyramid, because it's such pure energy, it can detect that, and it gets to a certain point and say, no, this can't stay, this has got to go. And it's like it takes it out like a vortex. The way that the weaver is working is taking out this like a vortex, but it replaces it. It doesn't leave you with big holes there. It just actually brings beautiful energy back in there to grow and nurture in your body, to replace it with good stuff. So every experience is different. People will be very emotional, but they'll come out afterwards, and quite often happens, and I never suggest this to them beforehand, they see amazing colors and they can't describe what the colors are. And then they'll say something like, well, all of a sudden there was this blackness, and all I could see was billions of stars. And that makes me smile when I say that, because that's when the universe is really kicking in, you know. And I just, afterwards, I'll leave them for a while, as I did with you and your mum, to kind of come back into your own zone, because you need that time to be able to come back in and then to reflect on it afterwards.
Totally. The integration time is so important, and that's often not given when you go to a session. You know, it's like, okay, you're done, next. You know, when, especially of a powerful session, you know, you really do need to, well, you need to ground. You feel a little bit spaced out, as I said, if I recall. And I also remember during the session, so we've got, you know, you as a clinical and very experienced clinical hypnotherapist, then there's the enhancements with the pyramid, then we've got the etheric weaver crystals. I also remember specific music that you used by a guy called Kip Mazoy. And I remember asking you about that, because I actually have that music now. I got it because it's so amazing to, and you know, again, we are sound and light beings. So sound, you know, is also running different frequencies, different oscillations and vibrations. And it really, I'm very sensitive to sound, and certain sounds can really put you into a deep meditative state very quickly. And to this day, I still use that music. So I need to thank you for that as well.
That's so good to hear. I'm so good.
Now we've got the pyramid, clinical hypnotherapy, we've got the etheric weaver crystals. So we bring that all together. There's another component as well to Pyranosis. Am I correct with bringing in the wisdom from the Kabbalah?
Yes. I started doing work on that probably about 6 months ago. Again, it was a thought that had been given to me that I needed to now research into that. And the way that that works, or the way that I'm developing with it, is that you have, well, I've done it with a few people, is where the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, they have a certain sequence to it. And the stages of going up through the Kabbalah Tree of Life. And what I've done is using the pyramid grid, using the Pyranosis approach that people visualize on the grid. But as they visualize on the grid and it comes towards them, it's like their portal. It's their way of connecting to the first level of the Tree of Life. And at that level, when they're in it, it's then I have a kind of like a way that I speak with them about what the first level is all about. And then within that, to say, well, if you wanted to, you can stay on this level because there are infinite levels within this one. Or we can do this for a few weeks, and then if you're happy to, we'll move on to the next stage of the tree. And that's kind of, to be honest with you, that's what I've been doing. But the reactions I've been getting back from people on who they've experienced, what they've met, the wondrous kind of elements that have presented themselves before them, and them just really being completely wowed by the fact that they're I mean, 3D is like, it's like dinosaur, you know, you've gone into elements that you are, well, you just, it's hardly even to be put it into words, Carol, you know. I mean, it's fundamentally the experience of going through that Tree of Life using the old Kabbalah route. It's just, you know, it's just amazing. It really is. And that's how I've been developing that in that way and moving through the stages of that. And I've just found it, the experiences that the people are having and how they feel so different after they've come back out of it again. And, you know, thanks to whoever's been with them. It really, really is something. I'm so pleased that the thought was given to me to actually go down that route and even do that with them. So that will be something I'll do more of next year, when other things are properly more into place now, that I will set aside a time where I'll start to do a proper Kabbalah course.
And of
because
course, doesn't that show us or how far a thought can go? So from a thought, all these have weaved together most beautifully. And you've just answered really a question that I always ask my guests on the Possibility Hub. What possibilities does this open up for other people? And as you've said, you've seen that, the old model of the world, the 3D model of the world, people walk out with a completely different model of the world, that expansiveness, that idea of multidimensionality, that we are more than we think we are. Yes. Would you like to elaborate on that any more in terms of some of the, powerful shifts and changes you've seen in people, or maybe share an example?
Yeah, I can get one particular lady who is very shortly going to qualify as a healer, and she will be amazing. She actually is this month. I've worked with her for about 2 years, but only in about the last year with the Kabbalah. And this lady's issue, bless her, has been always about a confidence thing with her. But with the experiences that she had going down the Kabbalah route, and who within her journey at the time came to her, and she said, I cannot tell you all of those things that were kind of an issue for me. It's not just about your hypnosis. She said, it's what I experienced on the other side. It feels like all those restrictions within inside me have now gone, and I feel very confident about going forward to finally doing that. And this is a lady who suffers with dyslexia, amongst other things, confidence, issues that really could prove to be challenging if you weren't determined to get the better of them. And she just said, this has been so amazing for me. And she said, and when you do start to do something, I'd love to go further, more, explore more with this, because I just think it's amazing. And it's done wonderful. Yeah.
When you've got somebody who would never think about stepping out that way, and when they come across something so powerful, there's an undeniable urge that overshadows the lack of confidence that used to exist before. Beautiful.
And and the thing is about not only that, but it goes back to the point we were saying earlier, Carol, and that is about every individual having their own journey, having their own story. I mean, and it literally, with something like that, for this lady to suddenly say, right, okay, before I couldn't do this, but now I feel freedom. I feel I've thrown away shackles that were really stopping me, like your ego saying, no, you don't really want to do that. Well, yeah, so you do want to do that, and it really, I mean, ego hates Pyranosis. It really does, with a passion. So, and I'm pleased. I'm really pleased. But yeah, it's phenomenal, and I'm learning all the time with it, and I love it, because it's so special. I feel so privileged to be able to be doing what I'm doing. I just love it. It's really, really good.
Gosh, that also answers the final question that I had was, what possibilities does this open up for you? And as you said, it's that continual expansion.
Very much so. I just recently had another birthday, although I don't put too much on figures these days, but
me neither.
But no, I feel that for me, inwardly, Carol, I'm experiencing such amazing change. And so now I just hold my hands up and say, bring it on, if you like, because I really want to embrace this. And I don't know if you've ever seen them, but I have a poster, a roller banner, which I have when I'm working with the pyramids. And it's this guy standing on the mountain. And obviously you've got the universe behind it. But the slogan for it is, let the power of the pyramid put the universe at your feet.
Wow.
And believe me, when you, it makes me feel chill when I just said that. Yeah, it's a big poster. It's a big roller poster, but it's very impactful, but in a gentle way. But it's Yeah, it's amazing. It really is.
So the power of the pyramid puts the universe at your feet.
Yeah.
Wow. There's
Yeah.
also one other quote I'd like to share that I saw on your website that really sung to my heart.
Mm.
Um, and it says, to conjure but your inner awareness is to question all and everything. To receive but the answers is to expand both inwards and outwards. And there's a little bit more to the quote. And I just love the fact that it's the inner expansion that leads to the outer expansion rather than the other way round, which many people have always thought of in previous times. So how can people get hold of you? And I know maybe you want to share your website, and I will put the links and everything, because on your website, they can also view all these beautiful etheric weaver crystals or pendants. They make fantastic gifts, even if you don't want to be utilizing it as a healing device, yet just having it as a pendant or with you is healing in its own right, which is wonderful. And also, where can people book a session with you? It's on your website, which I know you've recently upgraded.
Yeah. Well, what I'm doing at the moment is periodically using a room at the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary, and I will have set dates when I put things out there. But I can pretty much get a room there at short notice because I've done a lot of work for them there as well. So that's where I'm tending to work out from at the moment, purely and simply from where we currently live at the moment. We don't have the facility that would be most user-friendly for, say, those especially who might have a mobility problem, where at Harry Edwards, there is a lift from the ground floor, which I can take individuals up to the next floor where I am. So it's easy access, and I can get a room there fairly regularly. But I will actually
online sessions as well with you, though.
Yes. Yeah, I can do that as well. I can do that way with them too. Just one quickie, when you're asking about the pendants, yes, they are lovely to wear, but they are dual purpose. You can use them in the same way as you would be using the pendulum you just said there now. Yeah. So they are for protection purpose as well as I found one lady in particular last week when I was on the who was actually a carer, blessed, a lovely lady. She came to the retreat thing last week, and she was very much drawn to one particular one. And I'm always one of these people that I won't sell somebody a weaver if it's not the right one for them. It's about bonding. Now, I know in the situation with regard to yours, your mum and I went through a certain amount of elimination to know what was going to be the right one for you. But no, it's very important. And, over the years, Carol, I think I've probably sold well over 100 of these things over about a period of 10 years, 10 or 12 years. But I will never, ever sell somebody one just for the sake of selling it. It's got to be the right one. Has to be the right one for them. And and so I don't have an online catalogue. I've got some, but if I haven't,
yes, people can see them online, but it's probably worth having a consultation with you if people want to pick one. It's not, I like the look of that. It has to, you find a match for them.
Yeah.
And they can see this on your website, yes, which is healingintent.co.uk.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah. And you can always, I have an email on that which is linked to my normal email, and obviously anyone can always call me. And if I don't answer, I will get back to them, pretty quickly. So don't think it's, the call. If it's call is a few hours before I get back or something. It's not that I haven't been, ignored it. I never ignore anybody's call or anything. I always get back to them or acknowledge an email or something, or even a text if they want to. It doesn't really, I don't mind. Because it's all about communication. And that's fundamentally the most important thing with all of this. If you haven't got communication, you haven't got anything.
So, yes, and of course, you're very generous with your time and also giving people enough time to recover from a session rather than rushing them through and thinking, next person. But, again, giving them that time, that space.
They need that time, Carol.
They do.
Yeah. It's an experience for the first time. And people will want to talk about it. And understandably, because firstly, they want to ask what was so nice that happened to them. or something along those lines, so you have to give them that time. And I never ever would recommend another modality in the same day, because pyramid healing is really powerful. You need to give that person that time to just take on board what they've had, because it goes on for days and days afterwards, And
well, I thank you for being here on the Possibility Hub, and I also thank you on behalf of myself and my mother, because she's based in England, so it's easier for her to come and see you. And I have been following up with you over the years to say, hey, where's the pyramid? Can my mum come for a session? So thank you so much for that, and it's been a wonderful conversation, Guy. Thank you so much.
Actually, thank you, Carol.
Thank you for tuning into this episode with my guest, Guy Taylor. And I suspect you're now curious about the etheric weaver crystals, or maybe to experience the combination of hypnosis and pyramid healing through a Pyranosis session with Guy. So I strongly encourage you to visit www.healingintent.co.uk. I'm thrilled to be sharing new healing modalities and possibilities with you. And if you want more, then please check out the link at thepossibilityhub.com. And if you feel that others can benefit from listening in, then please share, review, like, or follow on Instagram Carol K. Talbot, or check my YouTube channel. Remember, you're always more than you think you are.